Sometimes I think that the world might be destroyed because of embarrassment, because I think a lot of people are now realizing that they bet on the wrong horse. But a lot of people just simply can't admit it. A guy in Switzerland has just got 10 days in prison for saying that male and female skeletons are different. So it's things like that that are piquing people and mean that the more the trans rights lobby overreaches, the worse it is for them.
Hello, I'm Georgina Mumford, and I'm delighted to be joined today by comedy writer and gender critical activist Graham Linehan. Graham, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. I'm sorry about my weird fake background, but I couldn't sort it out on the computer, so it's age. Age is getting the better of me.
That is totally fine. Graham, we're talking about a week after you've finally been found not guilty of harassing trans activist Sophia Brooks, which must be a massive relief. Earlier this year in September, your story also went global after you were arrested at Heathrow Airport for some tweets that you put out. So safe to say it's been quite a hectic year for you. You're someone who often talks about how the process is the punishment for gender critical people. Could you talk a bit about what that process has looked like for you over the past 10 years and the impact that it's had on your life?
Well, you know, I recently realized that I have been in litigation of one sort or another for the last 10 years. The first time it was brought against me was a kind of convicted sex offender and fraudster who called the police about me, and that became a news story in The Guardian that I was harassing trans people. And basically, it's been a sort of a pincer movement of legal actions to try and exhaust and worry me. And the press, like The Guardian and most left-wing papers, smearing me as a bigot. So it's been tough, you know, but here I am. It's 10 years later, and you know, what can you do? You just have to play the cards you're dealt, really.
Mm. And I'd be interested to know where you think the conversation on trans is at this moment in the UK. Because some people are saying we've turned a corner, we're past the worst of it. Others are saying, no, we're still sort of in the middle of the storm. Where do you fall on that?
I'm not sure. I think it's kind of, it's so strange. I think there's a couple of things going on. I think sometimes I think that the world might be destroyed because of embarrassment. Because I think a lot of people are now realizing that they bet on the wrong horse. But a lot of people just simply can't admit it, because if you admit it, you admit to all sorts of accompanying things, like, you know, putting children in danger, mutilating and sterilizing gay people, you know, putting rapists in women's prisons and so on. The sheer embarrassment of that must be so extraordinary that I would imagine it would lead to people who may have seen sense earlier, but now have backed themselves into a corner. So I'm not sure what the rest of the fight looks like. I think my arrest recently is a sign that they're losing, and they're lashing out. I think you're going to see a few more examples of that. That's going to pique people even harder. I mean, I don't know whether you saw, but a guy in Switzerland has just got 10 days in prison for saying that male and female skeletons are different. So it's things like that are piquing people and mean that the more the trans rights lobby overreaches, the worse it is for them. So I'm hoping it just gets to a stage where finally the whole thing just dissipates. But you never know. These people really dig their claws, dig their heels in, you know, and it's very hard to move them. But all we can do is just keep trying. It's a proper war of attrition, you know.
And obviously you came up through the arts world, which is particularly involved in this kind of thing, to the point where you can't really participate if you don't go along with it. You famously had your Father Ted musical taken away from you. You know, you had the wrong opinion, so they tried to remove you from your own creation. Why do you think it is that the arts world in particular has clung to this so firmly?
I think it's because, you know, there's so many gay people who are part of the arts world, and unfortunately, gay people their empathy for outsiders, their empathy for the bullied and the overlooked was kind of weaponized against them. So, for instance, with the Father Ted musical, of course, the theater is an extremely gay environment, and unfortunately, kind of mainstream gay rights discourse has been dominated by trans rights, and it's all the more annoying when you realize that most of the men who are dressing up as women are actually straight men. They've used that kind of decency that you find in the gay community, and that kind of empathy for outsiders. They've used that against them, I think sadly that means that my industries are going to be the last ones to turn around. I think publishing might go faster because I think Kate Clancy's recent essays and the documentary about her might loosen the grip of the pronoun people in the publishing industry. But theatre is still a long way to go. Film isn't so bad, but it's still present. And TV, as seen by the extraordinary behaviour of the BBC over the last 10 years, is also very captured. So it's not going to be as long a way back for some people, but it's a long way back for me,
And it's interesting what you say about this weaponized empathy. I think that affects women a lot. It's the reason why a lot of young girls have been sucked into this stuff.
Yes.
I wonder, you're one of the few men who have kind of taken up this fight on full force. Do you notice any difference in the way the trans lobby act towards you and the way they act towards your gender critical female friends?
I noticed that there's a little bit more debate now. They will not go immediately into the slurs and the abuse. Bigot doesn't work as well as it used to. Transphobe has no effect whatsoever because it's a made up form of bigotry that basically you can apply to anyone at any time. I'm not sure whether you saw, but there was a guy in hospital who was operated on, and he secretly recorded the doctors who saved his life, calling him a male, and now he's suing the hospital. So this is basically a kind of it's a ideology that turns individuals into little Hitlers who are trying to control the people they come into contact with, and it still seems to be working. There's still some terrible things going on, but I don't think it's sustainable, So, once more of these cases come in, every single case that is brought against these people ends up humiliating those involved. I don't know if you saw, but the recent Belfast Film Festival was again just a complete farce in court, because you had a bunch of people at the festival who know they're in the wrong, who know they've been bullying one of their employees, and they're just frantically covering their arses, which is more difficult for them to do in court than it is anywhere else. So sadly, we've had to spend a lot of money. When I say we, I mean myself and all the kind of women who've been contributing to fundraisers, and including my own, for my legal problems. But it does seem, the courtrooms do seem to be the place where this falls apart. And maybe we just have to drag every last pronoun person into court to make them realize that they're on the wrong side of this one.
And obviously this has been such a long process for you. There must have been points, especially early on, where you thought it would be easier for me to just not interact with this issue, or just say sorry and try to move on with my career. What was it that made you think, no, I'm actually going to pursue this. I'm not going to capitulate to this?
Oh, I knew I was dead either way. I mean, I was completely cancelled. And I thought, there's a great quote in Macbeth I always think of. I can't remember how it actually goes, but it's something about being in a river of blood, and it's as far to the other bank as it is to go back. And that was the situation I found myself in. I was in the middle of this kind of craziness, and I realized, well, there's no point in pretending I didn't believe in any of this stuff, or pretending that men are women, or that children should be hurt in gender clinics. I'm never going to do that. So I might as well just keep going to the other side, So It was, and also it wasn't really a choice. You know, you don't get to decide whether you're uncancelled. You know, so no one really understood that, and everybody was telling me to stop. And I realized that no, the only way I can do this is by going through it. You know, so yeah, here I am.
And I have one last question for you, Graham. If you were faced with a young person who's maybe just starting university or even just starting out in the arts world, and they're looking around thinking, all of this is kind of a bit mad, but I'm scared to say anything, what advice would you give them?
Keep yourself safe. Make sure you have, if you do decide to speak out, make sure you have an alternative form of income. And just observe and take notes and put it into your art. Sorry, I don't know. I can't remember whether you said an artist in this situation or just a normal student.
No, just a young person starting out in their career or university or in the arts world.
Just keep yourself safe. Look for allies. I sometimes notice from people what I call smoke signals, where you can tell they're not going along with it, but they're slightly nervous about making the full step and taking the full step and actually coming out as gender critical. Just judge it on a case by case basis of how safe you are. Don't ruin your time in college. Don't you know, if you can avoid it. But I don't know. I mean, actually, having said that, you see those girls in the Cambridge group who are being so incredibly brave, and they've decided to put their social lives at college at risk. And, you know, that's the other way to go, is just to find like-minded people and stand up to them, you know, stand up to them if you can, if it's safe to do so. Because really they're a paper tiger, you know, they all they have is abuse, all they have is threats. And once they run out of them, that's it. That's the last you'll hear from them. But yeah, sorry, that was a bit of a mixed message. But I think it really is one of those cases where you just have to see what your individual situation is and think on your feet, you know. The other thing I would say is just be really informed. Read everything you can. Make sure that you feel like you're on solid ground when you're talking about it. Because, I mean, I got into a debate last night with a woman in a restaurant who approached me. And you know, she just couldn't answer any of the points because, you know, they're sort of unanswerable, you know. And if you feel like you're on solid ground, then you won't be nervous when you're making these points. You won't be unsure of yourself. So just be informed, be careful, and if all else fails, take them on head on.
Graham Linehan, thank you so much.
Thank you.